I've been addicted to a video game for the past couple days, and the game is you run an RPG item shop, just like any item shop you walk into in an RPG. Um, and it gave me an idea, although it wasn't actually the game itself, but just that mindset. Let's go through the progression here. Back when I started playing D&D, and actually I've noticed it in a number of people, and even in video games, let's even go there too. When you kill stuff, you want to loot what they have. I was playing Torchlight, which is a completely different game, and in Torchlight, it's like Diablo. You run around and you kill a bunch of monsters, and sometimes they drop a bunch of items, and you pick them up, and if you can't use them, you go sell them. And it's happened in D&D too. I remember playing in a game where we killed a bunch of orcs, and then we looted every shield and short sword and spear and suit of studded leather armor that they were wearing, and then hauled them back in a cart to town to sell them. And when you're first starting out, if you're not quite sure how to handle that kind of situation, like the DM might look it up in the book and find out how much each piece is worth, and then the standard resale value is 50% of the price, and so he cuts the price in half, and then that's how much you get. But doing that kind of leads to a situation where the PCs go out and deliberately do stuff like that. They rip anything that might possibly have a value out of every dungeon and loot every single piece of equipment off of every corpse they find in the hopes that they can cart it all back to town and sell it. And now I know I mentioned in the other video how riddles and the solving of riddles somehow brings people out of the game. This kind of issue brings me out of the game. If you come back to town as an adventurers and you've got a cart and there's like 30 shields and armor off of dead orcs and busted up short swords and what have you, and you try to, nobody's going to buy that. Why would you even buy that? There's no way, there's no reason to buy all of it, and I can't imagine anybody buying it and then reselling it. So that's always been kind of an issue for me. Usually what happens is you kind of then ignore it. Rather than have the PCs pick up every single piece of sellable loot, they just pick up, the stuff that's relevant to them. And maybe stuff, and by relevant, I don't mean just the stuff that they can use, but magic items. Now, if you came carting back 30 plus 1 shields from the orcs that they had for some reason, I can imagine someone maybe wanting to get a hold of those. The town militia, or, the castle garrison. Because a plus 1 shield is just a strict upgrade from a normal shield. It works better and what have you. It's not uh, used equipment from the humanoid raiders with all the funk that you would get from staying in an orc den. So my idea at first, I had this idea of you don't want the PCs just, ripping the walls bare trying to sell everything. And there's some issue with, but you do want to bring some of that back in there. It's very easy to play the game where they just ignore the equipment and all, the dead orcs in their armor and stuff all lie on the ground, and that's fine. But I wanted to bring some of it back. And I had this thought of a guy, asking PCs to bring stuff back to sell him. But not just anything. And this is where the idea really took off, as I was trying to think of it. I imagine this man, he's old, he's probably middle-aged. He's old enough that he has some, some, what's the word I'm looking for? Capital, some resources behind him, and he has some wisdom and some knowledge and some savvy, but he's young enough that he still has ambition. So he's, through some means, is going to become an owner of a store, or a storefront at least, in Windhaven. And who knows why the previous owner went out of business or what. There's actually a little bit of possibility there that it was less than honorable how he came across this storefront. But if you're going to play in Windhaven in the world of Trocare, remember that the city is the safe zone, so nothing bad can happen in the safe zone. You just don't allow it. Anyway, he contacts the PCs, because remember, in Windhaven, the PCs are the only people stupid enough to leave the safety of the walls and the army and go foraging out in the middle of, a completely unexplored and incredibly hostile landscape. So he would approach one or more of the PCs and say, hey, supplies are scarce. We had what we brought over with us, and half the boats sank anyway, and put together this settlement. Shipments from the Empire are not, regular or plentiful because they've got themselves busy with a war back home. So there's not a lot of new stuff coming in. One of the few places where we can find things is out past the walls. And you don't want it to be, I don't want it to turn into the PCs going out and chopping wood and bringing back lumber and stuff like that. Bah. I figure they've got plenty of raw resources in the town. Considering that they had ships coming over where each ship, or maybe a couple ships, was meant to found an entire colony, and they had a number of these colony ships all come together to make Windhaven, so they've got, a big area. No. What I'm actually thinking, and the way I want it to turn out, is the PCs bring back items of interest from outside. Now, if they come across, magic armor or weapons or anything, the PCs are going to use that. And if they come across something that's overtly valuable, like a pile of gold coins, they're going to bring those back and spend them because it's gold, and gold is a currency, and it works. Now, these would be other things, like artwork or items of historical significance or something like that. He's looking to get that to put into his shop, because otherwise he doesn't have much by way of, supplies or goods or anything to sell. And he would actually work it. It could be kind of like a consignment shop where the PCs bring in an item they want to sell. He puts it in his shop, tries to sell it, and if he does, he gets a cut and they get a cut, and that's how it goes. Or he could put it, like originally I thought he would walk up to the PCs and he needs to get goods from them, and they happen to have goods at the time that they were trying to offload, and he just gives them, an exorbitant sum of money, depending on what level the PCs are, like 5 or 10,000 gold pieces to get all of their stuff that they have now, plus whatever else they bring in. But then I immediately, as I was even thinking it, realized that would be a stupid idea. Nobody opening up a store is going to say, I should give thousands upon thousands of gold pieces to these idiots who head out past the walls into the dangerous landscape in the hopes that they might bring back stuff for me. No, so everything has to be after the fact. He'll only buy stuff when you have it. He won't advance you credit or anything like that. But he will then, of course, share a cut of the profits. And so that was kind of where the idea stood for a little bit. PCs could find some sort of special item out in the wilderness, bring it back, and he would then try and sell it, and then they would get a cut or what have you. But then I had an even better idea. One of the things that DMs, especially if DMs are world builders, where they like to get into all the details of their campaign world, they like to get players involved. And so, well, actually, lots of DMs like to get players involved. So, then the idea became, how about in this store, the PCs who want to sell things have to write up something for it. So now, I mean, you bring back some special statue, that's great. It's a statue. We don't know anything about it. You found it on a continent that we didn't even know existed 10 years ago. What am I supposed to do with this? So, and I mean, you can come back and tell stories to the shopkeeper, but how is he supposed to keep track of every single story that every PC told? So instead, requiring the player to do a write-up of how he came into possession of the item that he's trying to sell. Now this gets the players involved in the game, because it gives an incentive for writing up like a campaign journal. Some people do this automatically. It's something that they find fun about the game. They like to play the game and then do a write-up in character about what happened. Or some people even like to write it up out of character. They just do like a third person where all the PCs are characters within this novel, I'm making air quotes, this novel, this short story, this whatever. But some people like to do it as a player. I mean, as their character, they like to write it up from that point of view. And some DMs like to encourage this by offering such players bonus experience or something like that. Because it's the player's taking a little bit of effort to do something with the game, and the DM wants to reward that, and so he gives experience. This is a way to offer the player that same incentive. You can even do it with experience, but also with in-game gold and things like that. There's a bit of an issue. You don't want to unbalance PCs in relation to each other. Usually the experience bonus you get from things like this is small. It's enough that you'll notice it over time, but not so much that suddenly your character is outclassing everybody else's, because that can lead to group conflict or a loss of sense of fun for both sides. Some people don't like playing when they find out other people are more powerful, because then they feel like they can't contribute as much, and other people don't like being so much more powerful because then they feel too much like the center of attention, or they feel like they're outclassing everybody else, and they kind of empathize with the feeling of unfun that can bring. So there are issues with how to implement this. And now finally, right before I went to record this, my thought was, it kind of doesn't make sense that they're selling this necessarily to people in Windhaven, because if you're in Windhaven, I mean, you don't expect there to be too many people that with a bunch of cash lying around that they're going to throw it on these artifacts, these curios, as it were. And so maybe my other idea is to make this guy actually operate his storefront back in the Empire. So now the PCs, and the idea can work even both of them together. Eventually the PCs are going to find some things that are probably so valuable that they can't unload them in Windhaven. They've got something that, maybe they find a diamond the size of your head. Nobody in Windhaven can afford that. What are we going to do with this? Well, back in the Empire, there are some pretty rich people. We have to somehow get it over there, but we also need it to get over there in a manner we trust to get over there. Ships are known to go under when they around Windhaven, so maybe the guy you hire, you hire someone, send him over to the Empire to sell it for you, and he just, he's in the Empire, he can sell this giant diamond the size of his head to somebody and never come back. Here, if you have this guy operating in Windhaven at first and you build up this trust with the PCs, then they can trust him to head over there and sell it for you, and manage to come back and get a bit of scratch, as it were, get a bit of money for it. And the last idea I had, and just because whenever you create something or a new system for an RPG, you always have to find out what happens when I try to break this. And it's incredibly easy to break this system. The system being PCs doing write-ups for items to sell in the store. Within the context of the game world, a PC could just grab a rock off the ground and make something up. Write up this really awesome little adventure page and hand it to the guy with a pretty stone he picked up off the ground, and possibly make money on it. So I'm still kind of debating how I want to handle that. Whether there's going to be sort of like a cross-reference where he's got to make sure that everybody's playing fair. Most players aren't going to have the thought of, oh, I'll just write up a fake write-up and get a bunch of money. Or even if the thought occurs to them, they figure that it's not going to fly. And since the DM is the final arbiter, he can say, no, there's no way that I'm going to let that fly. Now, certain people will make the argument, but in the game world, the shopkeep doesn't know. And the DM can say, that's true, but I, as the arbiter here, and since it's my duty to make sure that the game stays fun, both within the level of the in-game and as well as the meta-game, the outside game, the game where it's a bunch of rules and a bunch of people sitting around the table rolling dice, I say that this will not happen. We can't allow you to just fake it. Now, we can't allow you to fake it regularly. I would certainly let a player fake, an item or two that here or there. Some guy needs just a little bit more money in order to, get some equipment or something, and so he makes up a fake item. There, it's sort of a role-playing tool. It introduces this little bit of intrigue where he tries it, he dares it, and maybe the shopkeeper catches him somehow or not. But it's a one-time thing. Him grappling with a bit of greed, a bit of what's the word I want here? He's in dire straits. Oh well, a bit of greed or a bit of kind of like between a rock and a hard place. He has some need for it. I can't think of the word I want right now. Brain is not working. Anyway, I don't have a name for this guy because you know I suck at naming things. But that's the general idea. There are many different ways, which is the hallmark of Trocare, to implement this idea, but finding out which one works for you as a group is the best way. If I have a bunch of players and I know that even if I offer them experience and gold to write up, you know, little one paragraph or one page vignettes of how they came across an item and they're not going to do it, I'm not even going to bother implementing the shop into the game. It's only if I have players that I know are going to take advantage of it that I'm going to let them. And it has the side effect, and that's the reason why DMs like to encourage campaign journals, of creating a record of the game. You have these little things that people can read and find out, you know, if you've never played the game and you're just joining the group, we can show you, hey, look, here's some of the cool stuff we used to do. Or years later, you find that some of these write-ups you did, and then you get to remember the adventure in a little bit more detail than otherwise. I think that's a long enough video, so until I get another idea, bye-bye.